Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. After a break of 1 week, I am finally back with a new project, and I am super excited to start this project because this is something that I wanted to do, I think, since spring this year. I wanted to make a leather jacket, and leather jackets are, a specific thing, and it's something that I was taught more or less, like that I dove into while in university. So it's something that I've done before. Also my graduation collection had a lot of leather works in it. So I am super excited to, get into this subject again and to start this again. And I already have a sketch for my leather jacket that I want to make, which is this right here. So super intricate, a lot of details, a lot of seams, a lot of, embellishments and stuff like that, which is going to be, as I said, a lot. But it's going to be a multi-part series anyways, as I want to, go in depth with all of this leather work, and I also want to, for myself, slow down a bit as I was super burnt out the last couple of weeks. So let's start. Okay, so I have my sketch right here. I also have a colored one. I want to use some brownish leather, which I want to use suede leather, I think, or like a mixture of the nappa and the suede. I'm not sure what I'm gonna find. It's still not decided yet, obviously, because you always want to have your pattern first before you buy your leather, as you only needed a certain amount, and leather is expensive, so obviously you want to know how much leather you need. So I have not yet gone to the leather store and bought some leather, which I am super excited for. So this is my sketch, and I have these two patterns here. Both of them are the coat blocks that I have in my Etsy store as well, with the coat and jacket guide that I have. And also you can do this yourself, as you see right here. This is a plus 7.5 centimeter pattern. At least this one with the darts you can do by yourself by following this video up here. It's basically a dress block scaled up to have a plus 7.5 centimeters circumference in it. And this one right here is a coat block without the darts, which is a tiny bit different to the dress block with darts. It's just a tiny bit easier, but this one is available on my Etsy store. I have an XL right here because I think, as this one is super oversized, the jacket that I have drawn on here, that an XL without darts might be a good start. I wanted to check the pattern to see which of these is better, but I think it'll be the XL one without darts. So let's just grab the pattern and see how it looks like. So these are the sleeves. It's a two-parted sleeve. We can set these aside for now, as the sleeve is the last thing that we're going to make. And as you can see, it's super big. Maybe I'll grab the usual base block that I'm using for my patterns, just for you to be able to see the comparison between the base blocks. So this one is also the one with the darts, but as you can see right here, how much bigger the coat block is. If we put the sleeve points on top of each other, you can see that also the waistline and the hip line match up anyways. So this is basically the same length, it's just a different width and a lot more width in this pattern. So as you can see right here, you don't have the darts, and then you also have more width in general, 7.5 centimeters. On top of this being an XL, so obviously if you compare it to the S, it's a tiny bit smaller, but still very oversized. So I think this is a fitting pattern for the start of this project. So what I will be doing is to cut out this pattern out of a thicker fabric, because I don't want to use my thin mock-up fabric, as the leather will just behave totally different. So I will pick a thicker fabric that is more similar to leather. Obviously you can't make it completely the same, as leather is just really different, but something similar. So I'll be grabbing, I don't know, some denim or a thick canvas, something that I can find to do this mock-up. And then the first thing that I'll be doing is putting it on myself and see how the fit is in general, and then more or less draping it, so like pinning it on the bust, seeing where I want to, have less fabric and more fabric, and just adjust the fit generally on the dress form before slicing up the pattern to have all of these different pieces that I have in my design, as that's the thing that you want to do at the very, very end. I will also probably print out a collar that fits to this dress block here. As this is from my coat and jacket guide, I have included collars here. So I might want to check if I have something fitting, or as this is a super wide overlap here, I might have to do that myself, as this is probably like 20 centimeters. So I don't have one, I think, in my code guide, but let's see. I'll be back in a second. So we're back at pattern making. I have a few things that I want to change with this pattern. So the first thing being the sleeves, or like the armhole, just making them a tiny bit bigger. So what I will be doing for that is to just go down, let's say 3 centimeters on both the front and the back, and then go out 2 centimeters each, and then just ease that new line into the existing armhole like that. That's just because we're going to have more room that way. With a leather jacket, you just want to have, you know, space to move your arms around. So the next thing is the front shoulder dart. We want to get rid of that. So for that, we're going to draw a line towards the side seam right here. And now we're gonna cut into the dart here and this line here so that we can move, basically this is our turning point. We can move this piece up there and close the dart there, because for making a collar, you don't want to have anything in here. And now we can just turn it and tape it together right there. And close this with some paper to just have something underneath it. And that's the easiest dart repositioning, just like that. Okay, now we have a clean space right there to work on the collar. So the first thing that we need to do is go out here. This is going to be our overlap. This here is the direct center front. So here is the middle right here of your body. And since the sketch has a pretty big overlap, so if I draw a line here in the center front, you can see that right and left of it is a lot of space. So this is the space that we need to add to the center front. And I think right here is like 8 to 10 centimeters. Let's do 10. Yeah, let's do 10. Then we have 20 centimeters in the middle, in the front. And I think that's a good distance for the two seams to lay apart, with the zipper in one and then the dividing seam in the other. So let's do 10 centimeters, just from bottom to as far high as the pattern goes and a tiny bit higher. Okay, so this right here is now our overlap. And here's the zipper going to sit, which is, on the other hand, also gonna sit right here on the other side, right? Because on the other side, we're gonna have the same 10 centimeter overlap. So this is gonna sit right here. At some point, there's going to be either a dividing seam or a zipper going somewhere to the right to make room for the pocket here. So that's going to be this piece right there. So now that that's done, so I just quickly grabbed the Ultimate Guide for Jackets and Coats, which is my, chapter guide kind of thing that I wrote a couple of months ago. It's actually from 2021. So if you're interested in that, that is on my Etsy shop, and you're gonna find a step-by-step tutorial on how to do, for example, a lapel collar, which we're going to do for this piece here as well. So if you're interested, you can just follow that and you're gonna have a perfect lapel in the end. So I am also going to do that. The first thing that I will be doing now is to make this 1 centimeter wider, so like the neckline. And then also copy this to the back piece, with the difference of going into 0.5 centimeters at the center back and ease it into the center back at a 90-degree angle, just like that. Now I'm gonna determine where my pocket is going to start, somewhere here maybe. Then I'll have this thing here, and this goes into this seam. I think somewhere here is a good point to start the fold line. And the next thing that we need is the color band width and also the color width. So the color band width, I think I'm going to do 3 centimeters or 4. Let's do 4. And then the color width is going to be 6. Probably 7 is better. Not sure yet. I'm going to use 4 and 7 centimeters. And with that, I started just following my code guide. If you're interested in what I am doing, I can surely do a little tutorial on how to make label colors separately from this one. I just, you know, there's just so much time that I have for this video, and I figured since I have the code guide with this tutorial written down with like pictures and stuff, that I just go through this very, very quickly. But basically you can see me draw in my label right here. I didn't really like the angle that I had there, so I changed it up again. Then I also drew in my color, which then gets a mirror to the other side using my fold line as my point to mirror them over. So basically what I did before was just to see how the design looks, and now I am drawing in the actual pattern piece. This is what the color ended up looking like. I just followed my code guide right here, just step by step with these two measurements, 4 centimeters and 7 centimeters, 4 centimeters color band width and 7 centimeters color width. And then you can, you know, make this yourself. I also have an overlap of 10 centimeters here and 10 centimeters lower than the bust line. So these are all of the measurements that you need for making a similar or a, you know, the same color that I have right here. Obviously, this is just the first mock-up basically, or the first pattern that I will make into the first mock-up in just a second. Before we do that though, like before we cut everything out of fabric, we have a very, very sloped shoulder right here. So basically we have a side seam that goes into the armhole over here, and it doesn't really have a armhole, like no shape to it, like the usual armhole that we know. So this basically just has a straight line up until the shoulder, maybe just has somewhere a point where it just goes, not really a big curve, it's pretty straight. So to accomplish that shape, we also want to change the side seam and the shoulder area in regards to that design. So what I want to do for that is to grab a bit of paper to put right here. I'll just take this left up here as we don't need to have that on there. Usually I would do all of this on the computer, but I was thinking, as this is a very complicated change of the base block, I am doing it on paper to show you how this works. But for me at least, it's really so much easier to do it on the computer already, as I don't have to work with like taping paper all of the time. But anyways, so for a sloped shoulder, there isn't really a rule or something that I can tell you to follow. What I like to do, since this is my shoulder line, what I like to do is just go down a tiny bit here, maybe just 1.5 centimeters, just to change the angle of the shoulder, because otherwise it will just stand up here and it just doesn't look good, especially since the leather jacket is heavy, but it's still sturdy. So this might not just fall down with the weight of the jacket, but it might also just stand up and not look nice. So I'll just lower the shoulder by 1.5 centimeters and then on top of that slope down here to follow the curve of your body. Basically here it also slopes down to the arms, so that's what I'm doing here as well. And I think the shape pretty clearly says here that from the shoulder it goes inwards. So here at the this is like between waist and hip, it goes inwards. This is like a diagonal like this. You can clearly see it here where I drew the arm pointed outwards. So that's something that I will try to copy. There are no real measurements that I can give you. This is more or less just try out. So I'll just draw a line, maybe like right here, and then start to kind of like curve it outwards here and have a 90-degree angle here. and just make this my new armhole. As I said, nothing of this is certain yet. These are just guesses that I have to try out on the mock-up that I'll be doing in just a second. I will copy this armhole to the back though, because otherwise these two sides just won't fit together. So for me, the easiest to do this is just to put this on top of each other, match up the waistline, hip line, and so on and so forth. As you can see here, I need another small triangle to put on here. And now I can just copy out the line till here, and then it starts to go inwards until the hem. And we can also copy out the shoulder. It's probably the best to just use a tracing wheel like that, as you're gonna have the perforations on the right side of the paper. And you can see that and just redraw this. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but I'll leave the shoulder and not drop it here, because that way basically what I did is relocating the shoulder seam towards the front, which is what you usually want to do, as the seams just look a tiny bit nicer that way. So I'll just leave it as is and then just copy out the rest. And once done with that, I can go ahead and cut this out of fabric and put it together and fit it on the dress form and myself. Another thing that is very important is obviously the sleeves. I think I kind of left it out in the very beginning. I changed my mind. I want to make the sleeve in the mock-up as well, because we changed the armhole that drastically. So the sleeve right here, I hope you can see that. So the sleeve right here is very, very high up. It's a two-parted sleeve. And since we don't need this high of a sleeve head anymore, we need to lower the sleeve and widen the sleeve as we go. So the first thing that we're going to do is measure how far out we changed the shoulder seam basically. So this was the old shoulder point, and I went out and sloped it down that way. So I'm going to measure that distance. That's 15 centimeters. So I know already that here from the sleeve point, I have to go down 15 centimeters. Right here, and take out all of the sleeve head that we don't need anymore. But obviously we also went down from the previous armhole point pretty much to also 15 centimeters down, which means that we have to widen the armhole and lower the armhole as well. So basically what we want to do is have this right here be going like this. So this is where it's going to sit. We need a very, very low arched seam here that has this length, and then on the other side that has this length up until here. And since this is a two-parted sleeve, the side seam right here and now right here is not the side seam at the sleeves. We have a 4 centimeter relocated side seam, which we're going to change up as well. So I think I firstly want to make a sleeve that has the usual side seam. So I have to add a tiny bit here and then change it up once I'll actually do the design to be a three-parted sleeve, because as you can see right here, a huge pattern piece, and leather just is as big as the animal basically is. So you need to part your pattern pieces as much as you want and can. And the sleeve is something that you can part very easily, for example. So instead of a two-parted sleeve, we're going to do a three-parted sleeve, which means that we're going to have a seam right here in the front and a seam right here in the back, but then also a normal side seam. So we have 1, 2, 3 pieces for the sleeve, and that should be good enough to, put on the leather itself and not have to worry about if it's too big of a pattern piece to fit. So what I'll do here, I should have drawn the sleeve itself a bit further inwards so that I have more space here. But basically I'm going to very, very roughly reshape the pattern piece how I already started it with. So let's just cut off something here and put it on here, and then just copy out the armhole to right here. And now I want to have some sort of bishop sleeve, but not really, as you can't really do that with leather. But I want to have a zipper here and then a fold in here that just makes it puff out a tiny bit from the cuff, but not too much. So this big of a sleeve goes down to somewhat of a small hem, but not really too small, as I want to have a kind of deep fold. I don't know yet how much, but probably somewhat around 5 centimeters. So I can just redraw the sleeve to form like this kind of rounded shape here and go from there. So let's just measure both sleeve side seams like that. And then this seam right here can be changed after I did the mock-up. So I don't know if this placement is the final placement for the seam, but I'll keep this for now, and then probably I'll have another dividing line somewhere here, which I'm not going to put in yet. And since we have our elbow, which goes this way, we might want to have less fabric on the inside of our arm. So that would be this side here, but you know, let's figure that out once we're there. Maybe we don't need it yet. Maybe I also have to look at another jacket before I do this. Let's just keep it as is and cut this out of fabric and then also sew it onto the change base block that I have right now, the pattern. And I'll be back once I have it put together and on the dress form. Okay, this is the mock-up. Keep in mind, here is no arm in, and here is my arm for the dress form in. So we're going to look mainly on this side while determining if the shape is correct or not. I have my sketch right next to me. So the first thing that I already did, because it was pretty obvious since I didn't consider the length or anything, I just cut it at the hip line. So I just folded the hem towards the inside and pinned it in place where I thought it would look good. And now I'm just going around it. I made sure that the center back is a tiny bit longer than the center front, as it just slopes down a tiny bit, whereas in the front it is, you know, a bit higher. So that's the first thing that I'm going to do. Then the second thing, the shape of the sleeve looks really, really good. I did not think that it would come out that, you know, almost perfect. It does exactly the same fold here that I also have in my sketch, and then the sleeve seam comes out right here. It's maybe a tiny bit too low. That's the only thing, so I'm just going to redraw the shape of the sleeve a tiny bit higher. That's a super easy fix. Basically, I'm just going to heighten the sleeve head. You know, however much I heighten the sleeve, I'm going to take out right here in the shoulder seam. So that's a pretty easy fix. And then the next thing that I want to change is the lapel angle, and then also where it starts, because in my sketch it starts way higher, somewhere up here, I think. So it goes maybe from here all the way down and then goes into a point somewhere here, maybe like that. So I want to add a piece of fabric here, measure this distance and put it right here. Now I'm just going to redraw the shape here, measure this, 10 centimeters, and put it right here as well. And then basically just go into where the fold line here starts. I'll make a straight line once I'll do it on the paper pattern, other way around. And I think that'll look better. Maybe I don't want to slope it down that much. And also make this piece right here not that open. Yeah, I think that looks better. Okay. Just going to cut this out so that we can work on the area underneath. So in my sketch, I have a pocket that goes right into the point of my collar. So like right here, pretty much straight to the right into the dividing seam that comes from where the zipper is in. So from right there, just going to quickly draw in where the two pieces meet and also where the fold line stops, so right there. And now this piece goes somewhat over there. Maybe we're going to go into the shoulder seam at this point right here, and then like freehand a line that goes kind of like this. like this maybe. And then we're going to draw a horizontal line in this area and draw in the pocket that I want to have there. So the pocket is maybe going to go like that. And then just underneath here, probably more here. It's coming out and going up, and here is the button. So this is going to be something that's gonna have a lot of sturdiness to it. I think it's a bit too big. Maybe like that. The button here. Yeah, I think that's better. And keep this shape and elongate the line here to connect it with this right here, like that. And then down here we're gonna have a separate piece, probably 10 centimeters wide, that's gonna go all around, which is gonna have the belt loops, the belt, and so on and so forth. Somewhere here is going to be a belt loop, and also on the other side to have the belt. And then pretty much on top of where I place the belt loop, the zipper for the pocket is going to be. So let's do 7 centimeters as the center point of the pocket. And if I keep it like that, the pocket would be 12 centimeters. So good enough for my hand. And then we're gonna have probably around 2 centimeters on the outside to house the zipper and, you know, all of the seam allowance and stitches and whatnot. So let's make that this kind of rectangle. It's probably better to just do it on a flat piece as it's going to look better. But that's basically it for the front, I think. For the sleeve, I want to have a dividing seam pretty much on the middle of the sleeve. So if it goes down here into the armhole seam here, I probably want to have a seam here, going all the way down here, with a fold somewhere up here, which is not yet determined how wide. But basically everything that I have too much in the sleeve here, I'm going to put in the fold, so that I have a cuff down here, which probably is going to be added. Like I'm gonna take out, I don't know, like 2 centimeters and then add a 5-6 centimeter wide cuff down here to like kind of elongate the sleeve to make it puff up here, tiny bit like this, but then also not too much, as that would look weird. And that's it for the front sleeve. So in the back we have a yoke that goes pretty much down into the middle of the back, somewhere here. And we have the seam from the front that goes over the shoulder into the back piece as well, which goes, let's also draw in the 10 centimeters right here. So the seam right here goes down to somewhere here. So let's just freehand it, maybe something like that. And then the yoke goes towards that seam. And down here, I want to have a padded detail, which goes all the way to the side seam. So like in a round shape, going right here, and then I can add top stitches here and pad this. So something like that. I probably want to make the yoke go a tiny bit higher than what I have drawn onto here now, just so that the proportions look better together. And another thing that I saw in the very beginning already, the collar here. It seems to be a tiny bit too tight around here. You can see it that it folds weirdly here. That means that the collar here at the raw edge here doesn't have enough space. So what I do for that is to just open the collar up to see how much fabric is missing basically. And it opens up on its own, however it wants to lay. And you can see that there's 1 centimeter missing here, 1 centimeter missing here, and then 1 centimeter probably also missing on this side here that we need to put into the collar. So like that. And then we'll have to adjust the pattern for the collar and elongate this slit all the way down to the seam, otherwise you're not going to be able to put a volume in here. But I think that's basically all of the things that I want to do for this first fitting. I'm super happy with how good the pattern already worked out. I'm going to put that on myself to see how it fits on me and check in with you in just a second. Okay, ignore this side here. This one is the important side. So as you can see, it really fits well. I really like how it looks on me. I think the pocket right here is too high now that I have it on myself. I'm probably going to lower it by 2 centimeters and just, you know, put that in the pattern while having it flat on the paper. It's just easy a tiny bit. I'm going to have to, for the cuff, probably shorten the sleeve by more than 2 centimeters, probably like 3 or 4, just because for me the sleeve is already long and I don't want it to puff up too much as leather, you know, stands. It's sturdy. It's a sturdy material, so it's not going to make a nice puffy sleeve at the hem. So I have to shorten it to accommodate for the cuff itself. So I'm just going to have to shorten it by a few centimeters more than anticipated. I think the length is really nice on me too. The width of the belt part also looks really nice. Obviously the belt is not going to be 10 centimeters wide. It's more like 5 centimeters or something like that, but this part is going to accommodate the belt and the belt loops and everything, just to piece up the pattern even more, basically. That is why I am doing that, because the more pieces the pattern has, the more flexible you are while manufacturing it, I guess, because you have more space to put your pattern pieces onto your leather. That's just a small thing, but that's the plan. I'm going to have to check how I will be translating the changes here in the color onto the pattern, because this changes quite a lot, but I'll have to see and check if, you know, it's an easy fix or if I have to redo the color construction. But other than that, I'm super happy. This is what it looks like in the back. There's a lot of volume here in the sleeve, so I'm not sure if I should take out a tiny bit at the side seam or at the dividing seam that I have in here. Probably that's the easiest thing to do, just like 2 centimeters here, and then that should also fix the too much volume part there. But other than that, I think that's a very good base, and I'm ready to adjust the pattern and then also do the pattern pieces for the different, you know, small bits and pieces that I have planned, and I'm gonna see you in just a second. So the first thing that I did was just to fix up all the lines that I had when I was doing the fitting. Obviously they were all crooked and, you know, not perfect, so I just went in with another color to redraw all of the changes that I did and just fix up the lines and make them straight, or, you know, I fixed them up basically. On the fabric itself, I also measured a few things, like for example the 10 centimeters for the belt, making sure that all around it measures 10 centimeters, as that can, you know, be a little bit tricky to get it right on the dress form. So that's what I did there. And then also the placements of the pockets, the length of the zipper, the pocket in the front, I changed it up again and actually just kept my original placement. And continuing on the back, I actually also changed up the armhole quite drastically again, because I felt like I wasn't able to move my arms very well, and it also wasn't really easy to sew it. So I changed my underarm basically and added a small curve like a usual armhole, so that it's just way easier to sew in the end with the sleeve, and you just have a tiny bit more room, basically 4 centimeters more, both the sleeve and the body. I just added 2 centimeters, so 4 centimeters in total. It's just way easier to move around now. And then I added a few other dividing seams, cleared up the lines there, and called it a day. To transfer all of these changes onto my paper pattern, I basically just ripped out all of the seams and put the paper pattern underneath my fabric, and then with a tracing wheel just traced out all of the changes so that I have the perforations on the paper, and then I was able to redraw the lines with a pen on my paper pattern. So that was very nice. It worked perfectly well, and I can very much recommend you do that method. It was super easy, didn't have any more to do than was necessary, so perfect for changes like that. Okay, so I re-sewed the pattern now with all of the changes that I did in my last fitting, and this is how it came out. I am super happy with how it looks. You can also see that the collar now looks nicely and just looks a bit more aesthetic in my opinion, and just you know, the shapes and the sizes and whatnot just looks a bit more pleasing in my eyes. And I also added the cuffs that look pretty nice now with the length of the sleeves. I shortened the sleeves a tiny bit and then added the cuffs. I also added all of the dividing seams into this final mock-up now, and this is what it ended up looking like. I added the pocket flap right here just to see how it looks. Obviously there is no pocket in there yet, but generally speaking this is what it's going to be in the end. I added the padding right here, but I'm not sure if I want to do that because I feel like it's weighs down this part, and this part should be, you know, the strongest part, as that is where the belt sits. So I don't know if I want to add padding on top of that, if that makes sense. So usually the padding is the lowest point, so maybe it just doesn't work with a belt in this case. And then also because this still does some folds right here, it looks a bit wobbly, I'm going to make the collar generally very sturdy. So I also will add the stitching lines right there, so I'll just make it more sturdy because of that, as it's just going to support the collar in that way, and then this won't fold weirdly anymore, it's just going to sit nice and straight. And apart from that, I guess everything is clear, and I think we can start with completely making the pattern, so like all of the detail work. I have not made the pattern for the pockets and for the belt, and you know, the collar, the second one, and then the collar band and the lining. There's so much more pattern that I need to do, which I haven't made yet because I was not sure if I, you know, like the end result of my second fitting. So obviously that is the last step after the fit is final and I'm happy with it. So now I can go ahead and continue with the pattern work, and I can also grade the pattern and, you know, do everything like that. And once that's done, I can go leather shopping and lining shopping, but leather shopping. And I'm super excited to, you know, take you guys with me because that's a bit different to fabric shopping, as you don't, you know, buy meters or yardage, I guess. But all of that in a later video. I'm going to end today's video right here. You know, we have a lot more to cover in the future. I hope you enjoyed this in-depth fitting and pattern making process. To me, it is always such a, I don't know, such an essential part, and this has to be perfect, and then the next steps are just so much easier. So super important. I hope you liked it. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button down below and ring the bell so you'll get notified every time that I post. I post on Sundays, so you can keep an eye out for my videos then. In the meantime, I am posting loads of tips and tricks on my Instagram, and I will also be starting to do Pinterest and YouTube Shorts with all of my tips and tricks that you know already. So I will be putting up that in the next couple of days, or when this video is out, I might have already done that. So check out my, you know, social media. The handle is everywhere the same at THISISKACHI as here on my YouTube channel. And yeah, the most direct way to support me and keep videos just like this one on my channel coming is to just click on the link down below to my Etsy store. You can check out all of my patterns there. This will be up on my Etsy store once the whole jacket is finished as well, or like in between, you know, when the pattern is complete, so not yet, but probably in the next couple of weeks. So you can go ahead and check that out. You might find something that you really, really like, and that's the best way to support me. So thank you so much, and I'm gonna see you next Sunday. Bye guys!